Ukraine, DaVinci's Woodpecker, and the cure for everything. So today, I'm reading several stories, various different publications. And in regards to Ukraine, everyone's talking about what's going to be done this week, whether or not Mike Johnson is going to get something passed, or whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene is thinking to vacate the chair and get rid of him. And Mike Johnson talks about this poetic, he called it poetic, answer to the Ukraine funding situation, which would be to freeze Russian assets. A lot of these assets are actually held over in Europe. Again, many questions surrounding doing something like this. The knee-jerk reaction would be like, wow, that's great. We'll make Russia pay for the whole thing, but not taking into consideration what that might mean in the future for the United States going ahead and acting in this way and seizing assets like this in a country that we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't declared war against Russia. Going across other publications, Wall Street Journal, the regular every single day, beating the war drum, writes a piece about how Japan knows the Ukraine stakes. They know exactly what's going on. They've already sent $12 billion. I pledged $12 billion in aid. Again, I don't know if that's humanitarian aid. It's the third largest donor last year, and they understand that the threat of Russia and what it could mean and what China might do and imperialism in the Pacific. And then the Wall Street Journal ends this. Japan recognizes that the threat to the well-being of free nations is global, which is more than we can say for some Republicans in Congress, which, again, sorry. I read a column like this. What do I have? I have more questions. And I say to myself, again, Japan is a great ally. I get it. But correct me if I'm wrong. Over the past, you want to go back World War II, that couldn't be a greater imperialistic nation than Japan as far as the Pacific was concerned. And you don't think China has that long of a memory? They do. Something to talk about. Again, we defend Japan. It's one of the world's most powerful and strongest economies. Let them pony up the entire $60 billion. Just throwing that out there as a question. If they're not that concerned, it's not really they have to worry about defending their nation. We take care of that for them. And then I saw this story as well, talking about how Russia's liquefied natural gas exports is up over 4% in the first quarter of this year. They're increasing its output. They're not obviously shipping via pipelines to Europe anymore. But they're now shipping it via liquefied natural gas. Well, wait a second here. Yeah. Russia. We could talk about they knocked out the pipeline. So now they're starting to increase 4% increase in exports to Europe, LNG from Russia, getting into Spain and to the rest of the continent. So you start asking the question. I thought there was sanctions on this. I thought this was supposed to hurt them. Again, we knocked out a pipeline. Well, we don't know who did it, right? Sure. But anyway, everything's getting out. And they're doing business. Their economy's growing, and we're gonna send another $60 billion. Just want to let everybody know. I think the total right now is close to $250 billion has been sent over the past 2 years. I'm asking questions because we're told, okay, this, and this, but nobody wants to ask any deeper questions. We just accept what we're told. Not all of us, but most of us here in this country, which leads me to DaVinci's Woodpecker. I love reading about great minds, and I talk about them here in the podcast. Talk about Taleb, and I got to hand it to Walter Isaacson, great author. And one of my favorite books by him is he did the biography of Leonardo da Vinci. And at the beginning, towards the beginning of the book, lengthy book, he talks about a phrase that is written in one of Leonardo da Vinci's codexes. And Da Vinci asked himself a question. He saw something and he thought about, well, how does that work? He wrote down in his notebook, describe the tongue of a woodpecker. Now, I got a lot of them outside my house. You hear them all the time out there. You got to think about that mindset. Well, how is that possible? How can an animal, how can a bird bang its head like that without having any sort of issues whatsoever? So towards the end, the coda of the book, the tongue of a woodpecker can extend more than 3 times the length of its bill. When not in use, it retracts into the skull, and its cartilage-like structure continues past the jaw to wrap around the bird's head and then curve down to its nostril. The long tongue protects the woodpecker's brain. When the bird smashes its beak repeatedly into tree bark, the force exerted on its head is 10 times what would kill a human. But its tongue and supporting structure act as a cushion, shielding the brain from shock. Now, again, it's I want to think about kind of a useless piece of information, but it's fascinating, is it not? And again, you look at the mind of somebody like Leonardo da Vinci and what he was able to do and accomplish and create. Bill is constantly being able to ask questions of the world around us. And what that leads to is, again, the cure for everything. What am I talking about? The cure for everything. Well, there's actually a Greek alcohol, mezitra, comes from kind of a bark from a tree from the island of Chios, and it's a ancient remedy that does all sorts of things, and you drink it when you're there. I've got a whole bunch of it downstairs as well. It's kind of an interesting flavor, but anyway, neither here nor there. The real cure for everything, the issues that we have here in this country right now, is the ability for people to be more like a Da Vinci, like a Taleb, like the saints of the past, all of these people that were able to look at things and ask questions. We are presented with a view. I guess let me put it this way. We ever wonder how it's so easy for the powers that be are able to lead us into one conflict, one war after another, after another, after another? There's so few people are willing to ask questions. We're presented a story here today in the Wall Street Journal. Oh, Japan knows what they're talking about. They sent money. They understand the real threat there. But again, why not ask a couple questions of what was presented to you? Oh, yeah, well, we can fund this thing. We'll just seize Russian assets. Well, what happens? What happens to our ability to, finance our national debt if we're no longer the world's reserve currency because people don't trust us anymore in dollar-denominated assets, and they start to shift to somewhere else because we start seizing them? These are questions that need to be asked, that you need to ask. We just roll over. I mean, they put together various different people that they put on TV, the Ron Burgundies of the day, and they lay out whatever narrative they want to push upon you. And I'll tie this something into a little more obscure. Why do you think there's pushback into regulating or understanding the threat of some of these social media companies and what they're capable of doing? It's because it's a tool to people in power. They can use it They understand if they want something accomplished. They understand if they want a country invaded, if they have to wag the proverbial dog from the movie, they're able to do it. Because unfortunately, we're not a curious people. A sign of true intelligence is being able to question everything. WatchDog on WallStreet.com.